Thank you for coming on online. Delesh, Allison, Ellie. This is our Minto Dream Team out in Calgary, and Allison is with TD out there. So really going deep into their new project, Annex, and an incredible incentive being offered by Minto and TD, which allows for the potential of over $1,000 a month positive cash flow, depending on the unit. Which what I like, and I didn't include it in the email I sent out, but the note in my head, I called it the cash flow offset, was kind of my sales line. Because anyone that are established investors here, maybe in Toronto, may be experiencing some cash flow issues with their rental product. I know, for example, I have one unit downtown. It was renting for $2,300 per month, a one bedroom that I rented on August 2019, and that rent is now $1,650. So it's good to offset some of the product that you may have, existing product, with something that's going to have significant cash flow over 2 years to really get you over the hump of, or the hurdle of some other cash flow issues in your portfolio, or perhaps offset some other investments that you want to make in Toronto. And again, that cash flow. Mm-hmm. If people know, or if you've watched my videos previously on Calgary, you know I've been actively investing in Calgary since 2019. I see incredible opportunity out there. And then I'll go back to the word cash flow. We all know how difficult it is even just to generate cash flow in Toronto, even beyond the pandemic, or if you're with us from Vancouver, similar situations out there. Calgary offers the opportunity for positive cash flow and buying in a market at a significantly more affordable price in a prime building in a prime neighborhood. So what I'll do is I'm going to let Delesh take it away now and start talking about Minto Annex, and I'll jump in with any questions that I may have. And if anyone in the audience has questions, you can ask the questions in the Q&A box down below.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. I think maybe we'll start with just a quick introduction of myself, and I'll pass to Ellie, and then maybe Allison, and then we'll loop back in and jump right into our slide deck. In terms of time, I think we've got it down to about just around 40 minutes. And then we'll have a significant portion to be able to go through kind of deeper questions of the investment analysis and the Q&A. So to introduce myself, my name is Delesh Sidfura. I am the Director of Sales of Minto Communities. I started my career in Calgary, actually in commercial real estate in the capital markets division of a company called Cushman & Wakefield, which is a global commercial real estate house. From there, I moved to more full circle real estate consulting with a lot of clients and developers, specifically in Calgary here, from land acquisition to gaps in market, consulting on what should be built, and then the entire project marketing after that. So my trailing 5 years in Calgary specifically is about $300 million worth of sold real estate, and about 500,000 square feet of commercial real estate, either sold, leased, or acquired in terms of land. So I've been doing this for a little while. I'm also an investor myself. And I own quite a few properties in certain neighborhoods in Calgary, one of which is the one I own in Kensington, which is the best performing in my Calgary portfolio. Yeah, with that, I'll pass it on to Ellie to introduce herself, and then Allison after that.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, I am Ellie. I am the sales manager for Minto in Calgary here. I have worked alongside with Delesh actually for a couple of years now. And I've been in new home sales here for about 8 years in the Calgary market. So I started out in some single family, moved my way over to multi. I've done some semi-estate at one point. So I bring all of that to the table here, and in all areas of the city as well, I should mention. I've been in Calgary, I've been inner city, I've been suburbia, I've been Airdrie, some of our satellite communities, Cochrane, things like that. So yeah, I've been all over the place. I know the city.
Thanks. I guess that's my cue.
It is.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for including us, TD, as part of the call today. And thanks to Alex for your comments about optimism regarding Calgary. You know what? We have a community that has been hard hit, and we have had what we call the double whammy here with regards to COVID and oil changes in the oil industry. And yet I started my career in Ontario with the bank. I've had the privilege of working in every province of the country, and I've lived and settled in Calgary for many years. And there is a really lovely optimism that always exists in this community. There is a real resilience here. And so thank you to each of you listening and participating in today's call to consider this, because Alberta and Calgary are really great places. And you know what? Even though it's a little overcast here today, you never get tired of sitting in your living room or at your desk and looking out, as I am right now, at the mountains. This is an amazing thing about Alberta. So please come and join us here for some great things. I'll just make a few comments. First of all, with regards to our relationship with Minto, TD and Minto have had a very long-standing relationship. We've worked together for over 65 years. And so I think it really demonstrates the trust and the appreciation we all have for one another, and for the reputation and what we jointly want to bring to the market. I have personally been very excited about Minto coming to the Alberta market because of my own little personal story, which is that I grew up in Ontario. My dad started his career as a farmer, and over the course of time, my dad sold his farm to Minto communities, and my parents ended up building and living in a community, that Minto community, in their retirement home. And so I really have firsthand knowledge of not just Minto building houses and selling structures, but really speaking to the value of honoring history and honoring place and honoring how to develop community and to build opportunity for the future. And so it's been exciting for me personally to have that wonderful reputation come to the Alberta market. With regards to the market, and I know Dilesh will have a lot more comments about specifics, but I would just say with regards to some of our forecasting, we certainly believe that interest rates will go up. We've already started to see that movement off of the COVID lows, if you will. Certainly lots of indicators are there to support higher interest rates. Bank of Canada is beginning to signal overnight rate increases. Last night, we heard Joe Biden talk about their recovery, 6% anticipated growth. That certainly has an impact on our economy. We're starting to see retail sales increase numbers. All of these things are signaling very positive recovery indicators. And in the midst of all of that, we have to remember bond yields. The Government of Canada 5-year bond yield rates are really the key indicator of mortgage interest rate changes. And those margins have been tight, they've been high, their forecasted trajectory is upward, and all of these things really signal an increase in interest rates. So we're already starting to see those small movements off of the lows, and we believe that interest rates will be on the rise. So as interest rates are an important consideration in real estate decisions, I think it's important to give that consideration as you are thinking about this opportunity. I just also want to speak a little bit about our relationship locally with Minto and what we're doing with regards to the condo sites here. So we have placed our builder program at actually both Annex and Era in Calgary. I know we're talking about the Annex site today. That includes the fact that we have already reviewed all of the documents that you will be presented with. We reviewed that, had it all vetted by our legal department. We're all ready to go. We've got the program in place. We have in place long-term rate hold programs for you so that we can secure interest rates at the time we see your application. And we will not have higher interest rates. The only thing that may happen is that over the course of your application, we may be able to lower interest rates. So we're creating a hedge against the future and creating an opportunity for lower interest rates for you as we get closer to the registration and completion date for this condo. We also are working on our blanket appraisal program so that we can secure your values at the time of application. Our appraisers are out there working on that right now. So we hope to have a reply and a report coming in from them in the next short time period, but that process is all in place. And then I would just comment with regard to our delivery in the Calgary market. A name that we hope you'll get to know is Sandy Janjua. Sandy is one of our district managers here in the Calgary market, and she leads a team of incredible mortgage specialists. We have 2 dedicated specialists for this particular project, Kara and Kana, who are both very experienced, highly professional mortgage specialists who we would love to have the opportunity to introduce you to. Certainly at TD Bank, we do take mortgages in through 2 significant channels, our dedicated mortgage professional channel, as well as through the external brokerage community. So we love mortgages at TD. We would love to have the opportunity to speak with you. And I would just comment also for you that one of the things we are really putting some trust in the recovery is the growth within our mortgage team. In Alberta, we have just hired 100 new underwriters who will be housed locally in our Alberta market, currently all working from home, of course, but we really see that as a signal of what we see as both the recovery and the ongoing growth and maintenance within the Western provinces. So the bank is putting a lot of confidence in our market and our future, and we really appreciate you taking a look at the opportunity to do the same. So I've probably taken more than my time as I usually do. So I will.
Allison, that's great though, because basically if we summarize it, TD, Big 5 bank, massive institution, is basically giving the thumbs up to the Calgary market and the upside of the Calgary market in the future. Which, and again, anyone's watched my Why Buy Calgary webinar, which you all get a link to later on. I'm very, very bullish on prospects of Calgary. And now, as Allison said, in this Annex project, which is closing in 2021, what you do get is you get the opportunity to lock in, let's call it at the pandemic rates, because we will have some sort of increase in the future. So you lock into a 5-year rate now versus having to pay a higher rate in the future, which also helps your cash flow. So I'm going to now pass it off to Dilesh to get into the presentation and just show the huge opportunity of the positive cash flow program with the TD partnership. He's the architect of this program. It's an incredible program, so he'll jump into it now.
Sounds good. Thank you, Alex. Just gonna pull up my screen to share here. To give you guys a quick bit of background, I guess we'll just go through a quick concept of an agenda here, just so we've just gone through the introductions. We'll talk about Minto Communities Canada. Most of you guys are familiar in terms of Minto as a developer. But just to give you a quick background, and then we'll get into Calgary, why Calgary itself, the Annex project, some market comps, rental market comps as well, so we can understand the snapshot that exists right now, and then the investment opportunity itself, straight into Q&A. So to start, why Minto? And Minto was founded in 1955. Over 90,000 homes have been built by Minto in the GTA, South Florida, Ottawa, and they've been acquiring positions in Calgary since 2014. And that's huge, right? Because considering when we see a growth opportunity in a growth market, you want to get into there early, and you have land positions that need to be annexed into the city and created over that period of time. What's interesting, though, is that throughout North America, we have 1,200 employees, but there's only 23 in the Calgary office. And we have, over the course of this year, about $1.5 billion worth of real estate to launch in the Calgary market and surrounding area. So we have plans to 4X our team here as kind of the startup in the West over the next 18 months with the positioning that Minto has been involved in. Minto is also a publicly traded REIT focused on urban land development. And Minto also owns 13,500 residential units under their own portfolio, along with 2.3 million square feet of commercial space. What I'm really trying to anchor here is the fact that when you have a $4.1 billion company that is publicly traded, the amount of due diligence, the research, and the acquisition strategy that has to be in place in order to open a new market or start investing in a certain area is massive. And a lot of people say follow the money. So this is a key example of one of the largest builders in North America, basically opening up this central to Western Canadian market as a massive growth opportunity within their portfolio for years and years to come. So we get into Minto's portfolio holdings here, and this is just to give you a snapshot of the land acquisitions that we've made that are public right now. And I break this out into two categories. One are areas of intrinsic value, Kensington, Bridgeland being so close to the downtown core. And what I mean by intrinsic value is the land acquisitions here are very difficult to make. They're very close to the downtown core. And when we think about human behavior in general, doesn't matter where we live, what language we speak, it's always the same. So access, amenities, safety. And I usually ask myself, a couple key questions. Why will somebody want to live here 5 years from now? Who will those people be? And what does my building compete against? When we look at these neighborhoods, that last component there is really key, is that there is almost very minimal competition for new product development within those neighborhoods that are so close to the downtown core, because of the fact that you can't put any more land together to build something there. And also, we got to consider land position. When we think about communities that are in suburbs or suburban markets, that land was bought 15, 20 years ago, and there's maybe a 20-year plan on development. Whereas when you look at these infill inner city sites, the land is bought within a short period of time, usually 2 years before the building was built. And that snapshot of land value is really where you can create that intrinsic value. Basically, they're not making more of what we're standing on, but there's always more and more people, and human behavior would tell you that 900 meters away from the downtown core is something that probably won't happen again in 15 years from now. That's probably going to be the spot that everybody wants to be. If you were to rewind time in the GTA, you probably find ample opportunities. So you take that bigger city mentality, sprinkle it over a small town like Calgary, and you can kind of say, hey, that's an area, just based on human behavior in general. Off the back of these two projects are East Hills, which is 640 units, and that is condos and townhomes coming later this year. And then Grandview, now recently named Wildflower. So between these two projects, and this is where, and the reason why, if we're kind of coming back to why we would position this opportunity the way that we have 23 people in our office. We have $1.5 billion worth of real estate to launch before the end of 2021. And it's really just refocusing on these projects that were accelerated in terms of timelines for approvals. And now they're available within, the current market that we're in right now. In addition to that, some key sort of notes. Minto's already acquired 1,560 units in Calgary that they have for their own rental portfolio. And we have 5 developments in Calgary that equate to a pipeline of about 3,500 units, and this is only the ones that are announced right now.
And I'll jump in and add. So what the great thing is 1560. Look at that number. The builder that you'd be investing in, they put their money where their mouth is. They're not just making money selling units. They're investing in the long-term nature of the whole city, which I've said in my presentation, follow the money. How many analysts Minto has? 1,100 employees, publicly traded, everything's scrutinized. And Dilesh knows that well because we talk offline about things. Things don't move fast at Minto because everything is dotted, T's crossed. So if you see that they have 1560 units there, you know that they see something in Calgary as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a perfect segue to why Calgary, right? One of the most livable cities in North America. One of the lowest costs of living in North America. Also the 4th most livable in the city in the world. Actually, on April 8th, there was an article that came out that said we're actually the most affordable city in the world to live in right now. Stability, healthcare, culture, education, infrastructure. These are all things that people want to be around. Green spaces is something that we don't really see in a lot of major cities. And in Calgary, there's protected green space all around the downtown area. Within walking distance, like 3-minute walk of our Annex building. It's amazing. We're also located in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, and we're the sunniest city in Canada. So it's weird to say that it's overcast today because it's always sunny. It could be -20 outside. You still need sunglasses because it looks like it's 23 degrees sometimes. The most extensive outdoor pathways and urban bike network in North America as well. And ranked number 2 for healthiest lifestyle. And what I mean by that is really just this, right? So our Annex building is right here where the dot would be on the screen, so close to the downtown core on the north side of the river, which is, I would say, the safer side of the city when it comes to just the south side and East Village being a little bit more of the transient population, as you would with any major city. But the north side of the river being access, safety, amenities, schools, some of the best in the entire city are around just the downtown fringe in the northwest.
Yeah, and when we've talked about Kensington before, for those people that are from the GTA or Toronto in here, I liken it to a King West area. That's what Kensington has to offer. So it's more of a low-rise community, just on the outskirts of the core. So you live there and walk 10 minutes and you're downtown to your office job, and then you walk home, low-rise restaurants, boutique shopping, everything like that.
You got it. Yeah. And of course, we're also very close to world-class skiing, hiking trails. It was door to door, 1.5 hours between, myself, downtown Calgary, and Lake Louise ski resort 2 weeks ago when I went skiing for my last run of the spring season.
And what I like to say to people, it's a real 1.5, not you have to leave at 4 a.m. to get to Muskoka in 2 hours because of traffic. You can always get there in an hour and a half.
Yeah, absolutely. So that brings us to the Annex itself. So it's 108 luxury units in Kensington and what we call the best view of Calgary. And the reason why we say it's the best view of Calgary is on the east side of our building is a park. And further beyond the east side is actually height restricted to 4 stories only in that Sunnyside community. So just like Alex said, it's low-rise community. The only areas where you can build, concrete structures, 8 to 10 stories, is on our high streets, 9A, 10, 14, and Kensington Road. That's basically it. And like I said, the assembly of those parcels of land are few and far between, very hard to come by, very hard to create that opportunity. And you'll see that when we go through the market comps. Whoops, I skipped ahead a little bit too quick. We'll see that when we get to the market comps to show you exactly what we stack up against, how we stack up against it, and where that area of opportunity is. Now, there's a quick video of Kensington and our building specifically. It's about a 1 minute. It may be a little bit choppy, but Ellie will be able to provide a link to this in our chat box for people to view this offline. It's just a minute, but it'll give you an idea of our building, our quality of the building, and then we can jump into the next stage. So not only are we in one of the most sought after communities, just outside the downtown core in all of Calgary, but we're a minute walk to the C train station. It's about 120 meters away from our front door. There's a nearby campus, which is SAIT, which is only one stop north. One stop south actually gets you to the downtown core, or a 10-minute walk, half of which is actually the bridge over the river to get to downtown. Riley Park, the Bow River, the Pathway, St. Patrick's Island, Princess Island Park. These are all protected green spaces that are just around us that won't ever get developed, and that you'll have that value proposition long into the future. And then, of course, this will give you a little bit more background on what I mean by that proximity and that access. So here's Annex. We're just on the Kensington High Street, which is 10th Street here, which is considered the main area of Kensington. We're within walking distance of number 5 here downtown. SAIT, which is our technical institute, one stop away on that C train station. This is all of the green space that's surrounding us. This area here underneath McHugh Bluff, this is all height restricted to 4 stories. So there won't be any development that'll be higher than that. The reason it's height restricted to 4 stories is because of the floodplain for the river that's just here. Our building is not, Kensington is not in that area, but just over here it is. And that's because the river kind of bows out that way. And that's one of the reasons why this is all protected for that height. In addition, this area of Hillhurst, Upper Hillhurst, these are some of the most expensive houses in Calgary. And the reason why land assembly is so difficult is a lot of those infills have already been torn down and built as $2 million houses, right? You're not going to tear that down to build 4 stories. It just doesn't make sense, right? So this is what I mean by the access to specific units. It's not going to be an oversaturated market with just newer, better every single year. It is intrinsic value. You have only a handful of developments and probably about 4 land assemblies that are left to be built in this neighborhood, then it's done. The key thing about the reason why this area is so popular and valuable is really more about its access to these amenities here and proximity to downtown. And what I mean by this is the only children's hospital in Southern Alberta is a 5-minute drive from our building. The only trauma hospital in Southern Alberta, the Foothills Medical Center, is 5 minutes away. And then, of course, the university itself is 5 minutes away. There's one more thing that we have to add here, and I encourage you guys to look it up. It's the Tom Baker Cancer Building. And it's supposed to bring in 1,500 jobs by the end of 2021, as it's just being completed this year. And that is also the 2nd largest cancer building in North America. So when you think about the educational platform between the university, the only children's, the only trauma, and the largest cancer building in Canada, all of that education has to then come to Calgary. And the proximity between that educational market and downtown is very, very valuable, because not only are you attracting 2 types of specific tenants, but they are higher income style tenants, a lot of which will be coming to Calgary for 2 years, doing a residency program and then leaving, but they're getting paid by AHS, Alberta Health Services. And as we know, regardless of what happens in the world, Canadian medical is always going to be protected and paid. And even registered nurses make the most across Canada in Calgary. So very interesting. And then the reason why I tie that in is my rental property is actually just over here. It's not on the main high street. I wish it was. But my last couple tenants were both residency students. So one at the Children's Hospital, one at Foothills. One was from Montreal, one was from Vancouver, and they stayed for 2 years. They were amazing tenants.
And the thing about residencies is literally they go, they sleep, they go to work. They go to work. That's it.
12 hours a day, 6 days a week. You know what I mean? If they're not sleeping, they're trying to travel or get away. But because they're coming from bigger cities, they want to be in an area where they can ride their bike to work or go for a kayak in the morning or anything like that on the river. And this is things that people actually do in Calgary. It's not, pipe dreams of what I wish I could do if I lived in Vancouver, but running around on the hamster wheel, it's actually you do it once.
And people take inner tubes down the Bow River. Like that's I didn't have an opportunity to do that. I was scheduled to do that, but that was a regular thing on a Sunday, taking the inner tube down the Bow River.
Totally. Yeah. I've actually got kayak lessons later this month to learn how to kayak down the river. It's going to be great. So little things like that are really important. But this is really more about showing you that intrinsic value of that location, knowing that we're so close to downtown, but so close to something that will never change and cannot ever move, which is that educational and medical platform that is 5 minutes away. Speaking of Kensington itself, you know, that Queens West of YYC, that's exactly what it was. Over 100 years old, very multicultural, diverse, rich. It's an art community. There's you know, street art all over the community itself that are all commissioned pieces. It's actually really quite nice to walk around and see. And it also really incubates local business a lot more than high street brands, which is quite nice. And I think a lot more people want to support that type of lifestyle these days. This just gives you a picture of a 3-minute walk, C train station being right here, 30,000 square foot grocery store within less than 200 meters away from our front door. In that 5 minutes, you're at the Bow River, you're downtown over here. And this is that main road. So 10th Street, High Street, 14th Street, Kensington Road, that's where the height restriction density is. But if you look even on Google Maps, there isn't anything that you can assemble here to build anymore. It's all retail, 4-story kind of retail type stuff that the land acquisition cost would only make sense if you're building 40-story towers, which the city of Calgary has no desire to build within this community. So moving on to market comparables. And this is kind of talking to what Allison left us with. You know, they're growing their team by 100 underwriters just in Calgary to keep up with demand. Our January, and this is just in the first quarter, just because we don't have the info out for April just yet, but we'll just go with January to March. But in January, we saw the best January since 2014. In March, we saw the best March since 2007 in terms of growth and trajectory, volume of sales, price point increases, all across the board. So when we look at this and we say, okay, it's poised for growth, it's poised for this, it's poised for that, this is already showing signs of that upward trajectory that you guys have already seen in your markets. And I think that's important to kind of note, just to say, okay, well, where are we at in terms of where the future money is and where we are? And that really speaks more to this graph here. And what I mean by that is, when we look at comparables, I don't necessarily put a lot of weight to comparables that are older buildings in the past. I put weight to, what are people buying? How much are they paying for what's going to be ready in 18 months? What's going to be ready in 2 years? Where's the future money going? And where do the gaps lie? So for example, this green line is a project called Theodore in Kensington. It's on 10th Street. It's about a block away from our building right now. I would call this our main sort of point of reference, or I wouldn't call it competition, just point of reference. We're complete now. They're complete 18 months from now. And they're also a Toronto-based developer. Greywood is the developer there. But if you look at their price point between this 800 and 1,000 square foot unit, they are significantly higher for 18 months from now with what people are paying today for that 18-month opportunity. And this is where I would say our market gap is, in terms of our price point being with a 2-year rental guarantee. If we back out that 2-year rental guarantee, we fall well below this blue line in terms of the actual dollar value that you're paying for this unit. But the market opportunity is here in terms of where the 18-month money is going.
Sorry, Dilesh, you mean 2-year mortgage payment?
2-year mortgage payment. What did I say? Rental guarantee? Did I mix it up? Yeah, that's 2-year mortgage payment. Way better, way different opportunity. My apologies, guys. But yes, that's basically where I see that. The second one to kind of note here is this blue line. And this is a project called Sola. It's a developer out of Vancouver. And this is where that 20 to 22 month money is going. So this is what's sold in the market right now for a 22-month delivery. And that's the value in terms of what they're paying for a 620, 630 square foot unit. And this is where we land underneath that. So when we look at market growth, market opportunity, and sort of the speculative aspect of a fundamental cash flow investment, these would be the areas to kind of look at in terms of segment gap of where that future money is being placed and what the current value of what we're selling is, and is there an opportunity built in. So happy to I call it geek out, but happy to geek out on a one-on-one if people have more questions about this and provide more information and comps. But The key thing here is that if we back out our 2-year mortgage payment incentive, we actually drop down to below this market line. And this line here just shows you the frequency of that unit size being traded in the market and the opportunity there. So really the larger units, the dinosaur units, the units that people are not building anymore, because everybody's kind of shifting to this sub 900 square foot, sub 800 square foot mentality. These ones is where we see these massive spikes and increases in terms of where the future money lies and where our opportunity is. So that being said, we're really more interested in what's the rental market, because of course you're going to get 2 years worth of mortgage payment. We're going to put a tenant in on top of that so you can get that double rent. But what is the outlook of Calgary, let's say? And right now we quote the CMHC report citywide. Citywide, we're at a 6.6% vacancy. Within the downtown core and surrounding areas, we're at a 5.2. We build our pro forma out in our investment analysis at 8%. So we're already building in a 30% additional vacancy just to be conservative, to make it so that our numbers are going to be acceptable without saying it's the absolute best case scenario that we're showing you. It's not. It's a very conservative scenario that we're going to show you. The key things here in terms of our forecast is the tech growth. I mean, last week there was another company that sold for $500 million in Calgary. There are 3,000 companies that are all tech-based companies in Calgary now. And in December, we had the unicorn sale of Benevity at 1.1 billion, which is massive.
Yeah. And you guys have all, if you've seen in my email, or maybe you just didn't see it, if you scroll down, you can see all those positive news stories that I've sent to you. Yeah, Benevity, you have InfoC, which is going to be a large international tech company locating in Calgary, 500 jobs. A number of those positive stories in there for you to research. These are the beyond the headlines, because what oil and gas sells newspapers, right? So people love saying oil and gas. But if you just strip that away and look at what's actually happening, you see the positive growth where technology is filling in the void of oil and gas. Oil and gas layoffs, 2017, that happened, it's done. You don't need to worry about any more layoffs. You may get a couple here, but the major excess is cut. And by the way, oil is now poised to go to $80 per barrel coming by the end of this year. So you're going to see some resurgence in the oil sector, but don't rely on that for your future growth. The tech sector is the future growth, with the backbone of oil and gas that built up what downtown Calgary is. That's where the resurgence can
Absolutely. Be. And one of the key reasons why all these tech companies are coming to Calgary is Calgary has the highest number of STEM graduates. So science, technology, engineering, and mathematics graduates per capita in Canada. And it's because a lot of these oil engineering jobs are transferable in terms of education for the tech sector as well. But key things here, $7.5 billion will be spent through the city in 2022, with Calgary companies leading that spend. And also the growth of that tech sector, 50% of the jobs forecasted in tech are going to be in Alberta. And this is from the Information and Communication Technology Council, which is the source that we've quoted here. Now, that's all great in terms of just general news. What is the actual market? I'm sure you're asking, like, Dilesh, what's the real deal? The real deal is this. When we look at brand new built buildings that are specific to rentals, in the Kensington area, there's only 2. And these 2 buildings are wood frame buildings. They're not concrete like us. They have pop-in windows instead of floor-to-ceiling glass. They have shared air. We have individual HRV and fan coil systems. So your post-COVID world, you're not sharing air with neighbors in terms of tenants. We're LEED Gold in terms of development, design, and guideline. And we have air conditioning. I might have mentioned that. Vic on 5th was actually just delivered in March. And this has only had a month to be open and renting. And they've rented, and we probably have to go back to them and see what their new number is now. But they've rented 20% of the building in the first month. And they're averaging $2.70 per square foot on their monthly rental rates. Aspen on Bow is 100% leased out now. We actually just had that conversation. So they went from the last little bit to being fully leased out over the last little while. Again, wood frame buildings and zero competition. The average of the market is $2.60 a square foot as of right now. We had a conversation with one of our homeowners, actually our customer experience manager this morning who was helping one of our homeowners move in one of their tenants. And they have a 1-bed. It's our George unit that we actually project as a $1,200 per month rent. And they had it at $1,400 per month rent, and it was rented fairly quickly. Again, very, very little in terms of vacancy when it comes to Kensington, because there isn't very much that is new in that area. If we deep dive into Kensington specifically, these are our numbers. These are the exacts based on what has been rented as of March. And I've just highlighted the ones that are what we would consider our actual competition. The rest of these being older buildings with lesser amenities and higher condo fees. That's one of the things. Like if we look at Lido, we're about I think almost 30% cheaper condo fees than resale units in the market, and that's just because of the LEED Gold efficiency that we have in our building. When we talk about sunk cost of your investment, you're going to be saving that over the course of years, just having significantly cheaper condo fees than everybody else in that market space. So the key things to note here, 955 square feet, $2,500. 954 square feet, $2,700. Our projections for our 1,100 square foot unit is $2,700. I think it's $2,750. I think it might be right on the money there. So things to consider when we look at snapshot in the rental market right now. The one thing I didn't look into this and I can give you some guidance on is Airbnb and short-term rental. There isn't anything that actually competes within that market for short-term. There's about 2 units, one of which is actually in the Annex building that you guys can look up. It's $135 per night stay. And in terms of competition for hotels, there's one boutique hotel in Kensington. It's 19 units. So that short-term rental is also another option for your investment.
And I'll also add, because we've talked about this before, Airbnb in Calgary is very different than Airbnb in Toronto. You got to remember, Calgary and Alberta is a capitalist economy. Calgarians, Albertans do not like being regulated. They're free market focused. So I wouldn't worry about regulations that could impact your viability of your Airbnb. They're pro-capitalist, pro-business. So if you were buying in Toronto, I don't typically promote Airbnb, but there is a huge opportunity here on an Airbnb basis to do some stuff. And as Dilesh said, this is an area which needs more accommodations.
And our bylaws in our building do not restrict anything, and we don't need to get city licenses or anything like that to have it approved. So it's just, is it approved in the condo corporation? Yes, it is. Blanket statement, no problem. You can rock and roll. So the opportunity itself, and this is really more getting into exactly what Alex kind of alluded to. And that was, no rent control in Calgary. And that when we look at the CMHC stats, Calgary's rent has increased by 4% per year over the last 8 years, with the provincial average of 2.2. So still no rent control. And that's kind of that growth projection. In terms of our analysis, we leave it stagnant. We don't actually increase your rent over that period of time. We're just giving you a snapshot of today to kind of just give you, once again, a really conservative look at what this investment could be. The 2 years mortgage free, and this is kind of key, right? Like having that passed by legal and securities by TD Bank for us to give you payments for 2 years and then still allow you to put a tenant in on top, amazing. In terms of no land transfer tax and no development charges, those 2 things alone in your guys' market is probably another down payment on another, pre-sale unit. LEED Gold design gives us a lower condo fee. And then this is also key. All of the remaining units, all the spec units that we have inside this building have every single upgrade included in the purchase price. So none of this sort of base model, and then you got to check off all these boxes to get all these upgrades. We have the blinds are included, the roller shades, the waterfall countertops and the islands in the kitchen, the gas ranges, the gas hookup on the balconies for the barbecue, Fisher Paykel fridges that are like $65,000 or $7,000 fridges. And then even little things like the bathroom tile. I don't know if you guys noticed this or not during that video, but it's not a fiberglass one piece insert. It was, a tub base with full to ceiling height tile. So little things that are just that one level of elevated in terms of just finishing, right? And that finishing is really what's going to be the difference between how that unit's going to look 5 years from now, 7 years from now, and the longevity and sustainability of those materials. The one thing I haven't gone over, and this is really key for me in this market, being heavily invested myself in the Calgary market for real estate, is the no HST. Now, with the amount of money that's been put into our economy, there's rumblings provincially and federally, you guys can Google it, about an HST coming soon. And it may even be under the Conservative government, which it would be kind of another topic of oh my, we had to do that during our time kind of situation. But where I see the opportunity here is a 6 to 8% increase in value in a snap of a finger, just based on the fact that the federal and provincial government have made a change to our tax structure. Now, the reason I say that is no developer will absorb that cost. And if you were selling your home and buying another one and had to pay the HST, you're not going to absorb the cost on your side either. So you have this opportunity to kind of just say, if that comes in, you want to buy pre-HST. And if it comes in, that's an opportunity for just a market growth and a blip in that market, just based on a federal or provincial decision. So really interesting to kind of note there as well in terms of just growth opportunity. In terms of price points, we have a range of units here, and pricing includes our taxes. So just an FYI, this is not, the base price, then we have to add tax. This is your all-in price. The only thing it doesn't include is parking stalls. If you'd like to add one, they're 45. And storage, they're limited at 75. We'd have to just double check with our allocation for how many storages we need. There's a pro and con to that. I would say there's a new storage facility that's down the road. A lot of people that live in Calgary have more gear, kayaks, skis, bikes, camping stuff, hiking stuff. It's easy just to have that in storage on your way out versus in the building. And it's sometimes cheaper to do that. And that's what a lot of people end up choosing to do. So let's get into the real numbers. And the reason why we chose these two units, or these are the two units that we have the virtual tours of that are set up as our show suite. So you can see exactly what these units look like. I have individual investment analyses for every single one of these that I'm happy to share with Alex and your group. And if you have different parameters, we can go through that as well, right? So we base this normal parameter on a 20% down payment. So if you went to your bank and said, I'm buying an investment unit, they'll automatically place you at 20%. But I'll show you the next slide, which actually shows this at a 5%. So if you said, hey, I'm buying a second home, I'm thinking of moving to Calgary, I'm buying a unit for my kids to go to university, to med school in Calgary, whatever that ends up being, or that narrative that you can start a conversation with your bank with, to explore that idea of 5%. And I'll show you how this changes in terms of what that changes for your internal rate of return and cash on cash return. But the key thing here is Minto will make your mortgage payment based on a 25-year AM. And because we're anticipating closings later, we're basically covering off your interest rate increase at 2.1%. So the idea is the sooner you close, and if we can get a tenant in there for you sooner, we would mutually agree to close sooner. And you would probably get closer to this, which is the lowest offered rate that we've seen so far, 30-year around 1.65 on a variable. You have an option to lock in if you see some movement, but you're basically winning just based on your monthly payment and what we would pay you based on what our parameters are of a monthly payment. So you have your 76,000 down, you have your first year cash flow from the Minto payments, which is 15, and then you have 18 on top of that, which is just the rental income. So the first 2 years you cash flow positive after all of your expenses by 13,000 per year. And what's interesting here is after 5 years, if you sold the property for the exact same price as what you bought it for, the exact same price, you're basically making 182% on your initial investment. So what that 15% IRR means is you have in positive cash flow your cash back in terms of what you paid for your down payment in 2.25 years. So if you want to buy something else, you've got your cash back to buy. You don't have to dip into the equity of the property and then leverage it again to go buy something else. Hopefully you'll come back to us and say, hey, what's coming down 2 years from now? Let's buy something else in Calgary. And that's kind of the reason why we have this. Again, limited amount of units, not making a big splash about this. We don't expect to sell like this in the future, like you've given everything in the kitchen sink, but it's just because we need to refocus our energy over to these new projects that are coming down the pipeline. Now, speaking
this and here's the great, when Delesh first came to me with this program, I was confused because I'd never seen this before. This is truly going to be a once in a lifetime opportunity because I've never seen this before. Been doing this for 12 years. And as Dilesh said, this is a very specific opportunity at this specific time. You're never going to see this again. You're never, not by Minto for sure. You're definitely never going to see this again by Minto. So it's really a once in a lifetime opportunity. You're getting your mortgage paid for 2 years and you're going to generate significant cash flow over that 2-year period with upside down the road too.
Yeah, exactly. And we're not even considering that rental increase or that equity increase over that period of time. This is literally saying buy it for the same price, sell it for the same price. You make this much money in between.
Yeah. And then we'll also jump in because we had TD on, we look at, you're locking in this low interest rate. So yes, they cover your costs for 2 years. Year 3, you're going to be on your own, but you've locked into a sub-2 interest rate for 5 years. And that no rent control in Calgary, rental rates go up, prices will go up on the property. So it's a huge win opportunity by jumping on it now.
On the back end for sure. Yeah. And the way that we mitigate this sort of risk here is our professional management. So we're using the approved professional manager for the property management of Minto itself in Calgary, extending that to our purchasers. And the idea is that after your firm date, before your closing date, right? So we'll put an automatic date of December 30th, 2021. And after that date, we'll give authorization to our management company to advertise that unit on your behalf to get you a tenant. So if they say, August 1, we've got you a tenant, we accelerate that closing date, you lock in that interest rate earlier, and you've got that double payment from day one. So we're trying to just do a completely easy handoff. Now we build in an 8% vacancy rate. Honestly, if we're closing at the same time as you getting a tenant, this first year vacancy doesn't exist, right? So that's going back to rebate this cash flow. But we're saying, hey, you know what? Even if you close and you didn't have a tenant, you had to carry it, whatever, you got an 8% vacancy rate for your first year. So we're trying, again, really to be very, very conservative. The same numbers apply for our largest unit, and we do increase a little bit in terms of our IRR just from a dollar value per square foot. The larger units, what I call the dinosaur units, the ones that are not being built anymore, these are the ones that will probably end up seeing that growth opportunity just from a dollar value per square foot, having more square footage in the future to say that that's your equity bump between what the price line would be at that time. So again, a little bit higher IRR, a little bit better cash on cash, but it's because the unit size is bigger and the price is within that market gap of what the future money is doing and what the current money is doing right now. So that's where personally I see more value on the larger units when I look at these numbers. The key one to look, sorry, yeah.
Oh no, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to jump onto the 5%. I just got really excited to show the 5% down payment. So, but yeah, if you wanted to add something.
Oh no, and going back into larger units, if we look at post-COVID times, there will still be that working from home component. We're all going back to the office, as you can see, I'm in my office right now, but there will be a working from home component, and there's going to be limited. Even though this is condo, this is a scarce asset in regards to that large unit, that over 1,000 square feet. So yeah, I do agree. The best buys are going to be that starting high 800s square foot unit to the 1,100 square foot unit. Those are absolutely going to be the best buys in here.
And we see that a little bit more in market as well with downsizers, right? So sell their house for 1.2 in Hillhurst and they want to buy a place, but they want to live on a single level and they don't want to leave the community. That's exactly who we're seeing that want to come see our show suites on a every other day kind of basis. Yeah. So if we jump into this whole concept of 5%, and this is where it gets crazy, we don't contemplate the CMHC fee in here, we leave it at that. But if you bought our 600 square foot one and den with a 5% down payment, it's $20,000 down. Your IRR is 49%. You 4x in 5 years if you sell it for the same price as you bought it for, and that's just on cash. And that is just explosive in terms of that potential of what you could have there. In terms of our down payments necessary, I forgot to actually mention this. We can do $5,000 down payments. because the building's built, because we're valued at $4.2 billion, we don't need the money to give you a later closing date, right? So we just basically say, secure a unit at $5,000, balance due when you close, and we'll take care of everything in the middle to try to get you a tenant sooner, so you can lock in an earlier interest rate. And from day one, we pay you this payment here, and hopefully your mortgage payment is something like this. So even with 5% down on a 30-year AM, your mortgage payment is still cheaper than what we would pay you every single month, which is awesome. So that gives you just an idea of what that 600 square foot unit looks like. If we do it on the Plaza unit, which is our 1,100 square foot, the largest one, like, 4.25%, 4.3x without any increase in rent, without any equity contemplated, just straight up buy it for this today, sell it for the exact same thing 5 years from now. So, and of course you're not going to do that, right? The market's on an upward trajectory. The land, you can't build anymore. There's only 2 buildings that are coming down the pipeline that compete with this building in the next 24 months, right? So it's not like a neighborhood where there's like 17 buildings that are coming up in the next 24 months and it's going to be oversaturated. It is very boutique, and there's almost no rental competition in this specific market. So again, same sort of parameters. You put 32 down, and in 5 years you leave with 140, and that's kind of our the net cash return is minusing your 32 off of the 140. So the 32 actually made 108 after you put the 32 back into your jeans. So that's kind of the idea with this whole thing, and really this positive cash flow. Like within the first year, you're making back $60,000 in positive cash flow based on the Minto payment and the rent, and you only put $32,000 down. So we talk about cash flow, we talk about opportunity, we talk about the fact that this is not going to happen again. We don't anticipate this happening again. If you look on the Minto website, you will find nothing that speaks to this 2-year mortgage payment at all. And you won't. It'll just be like, hey, this happened, and 40 people got an opportunity to buy one of these, and hopefully they'll be stoked to buy something with Minto in the future in Calgary, if proven that our product, our value, our land acquisition strategy, the growth potential of the areas that Minto's invested in are again following that money. So with that, love to open the floor for questions. We can go through some stuff and go from there. Oh, Alex, here. I think you're on mute.
There we go. Take that off. Just going, any questions put in the Q&A box? I just noticed some questions here. Some people are asking about costs and maintenance fees. That's already been dealt with. Also, you'll get the full price list as well. This whole thing's been recorded, so there will be a summary recap video of this. So that, I think, handles for the most part those questions there. But I am jumping into the one here. In terms of renting, do we have to go through the management teams, or do we have the flexibility to rent ourselves? You can rent on your own. There's nothing in the contract that you have to use them to rent out. Just the advantage is, again, Dilesh and I talked about this in March. I said, hey, if you made it flexible from the closing, you can make it so there really isn't a vacancy in 2021. So if you had the on-site management team marketing your unit to rent, and it gets rented for, let's say, August 1st closing, for example, you get 0 time in regards to the closing. So there is an advantage to that, but 100% you don't need to use the management company. For example, Airbnb, if you will Airbnb it, you're going to close on it. It's going to be empty, but you got that cash flow because you got mortgage payments already covered, and then you can start doing that. So you don't need to use their management company. It's there as a convenience. Okay, since there is a 2-year mortgage free period, when does the buyer close on the unit? You're closing this year. You're closing in 2021, and you have 24 months of mortgage payments. Okay, so now let's go into the question part. Now, Dilesh,
Alex, sorry, I'll just hop in really quick because I get that question a lot when I meet with people to do their FinTrack and documents. So the way the Minto payments are set up, it's monthly to yourself for 24 months. It doesn't pay your mortgage directly. You still have to secure that. It's kind of, this comes into your bank account, and then you pay your costs out of your own account as well. if that makes
and,
sense.
And again, you can go right to one of Allison's TD reps to get your mortgage if you want. You can use your own preferred mortgage professional.
Yeah.
And the only reason that I don't want to say plugging TD, but the reason why they're with us is they have a blanket approved value for the entire building. They're not going to charge you for another appraisal. They have their rates that they can extend you through the Minto relationship, with a few basis points down from what their posted and floor rates are. So they just have a good program and they know the project. The key thing there is also knowing our documentation and having it pass through their securities team for this payment, right? Because that's what took since November until now to get approved through legal and securities is trying to figure out how to put this architect or create this opportunity. And that's why, likely it will probably never get done again. And nobody's really able to do it the way that we've been able to do it. And it's because, again, probably 50 of those 1,200 employees are in-house legal people that kind of crunch these things and figure this out. So you don't have to use TD. You can use another bank. It's just smoother process with TD. I would take their proposal and take it to your bank and say, this is what TD is offering me, sharpen your pencil and beat it. And that's what I would probably encourage doing.
So jumping in here, just a foreign buyer question. So I'll just add, there's no foreign buyer tax in Alberta. Fantastic. So you don't have to worry about that. In regards to what the mortgage rate is for a foreign investor, well, it would come down to the rate and the down payment. So you would have to speak directly with TD to find out what that is. They're gonna have to qualify you and everything like that. But you don't have to worry about the tax. Typically, I'd say you're looking at a minimum 35% down on closing if you were a foreign investor.
I just posted the TD information in the chat if anybody
Great.
wants it.
Perfect. What rates and incentive is TD offering? Variable as well as 3-year fixed on this project. Again, you're going to reach out directly to the TD rep on that. Rohan asking again about property management. Property management rate on site approved by Minto. So you'll have an approved property manager on site in the building. They'll be able to manage it for you.
Also, I learned there's security, if anybody's wondering. There's security in the building from 8 o'clock at night till 6 a.m. He sits in the lobby.
Perfect.
I met him last week, working
great.
late.
East Hills Crossing. East Hills Crossing is going to be launching in a couple of weeks.
Fingers crossed, yeah.
As I get that question often. So we're just waiting for final approvals on head office. Does Minto manage their condos post-registration, or do owners board of directors take over? Well, you always have a board of directors that's going to make decisions on who's managing the property. So even in a Tridel building in Toronto, the board of directors could choose to vote out condominium management and bring in a different management company. There's nothing that requires a board of directors to keep a management company in the building. So then I'll flow through. Do you know who manages the building? Is it a local company or international?
It's a local company. It's called Asset West Management.
Okay.
And they've been approved for East Hills. They've been approved for Annex. They're approved for Era. So
Okay.
They're our approved management company after Minto's done their due diligence on probably.
There's also a couple disclosure document questions. So yes, you'll get, there is a management agreement that will come with the disclosure doc. So, and you'll receive those after signing the purchase agreement. And then of course you'll have your 10-day rescission period to look through all of that. Those disclosures also include the budget, condo plan, bylaws, a lot of stuff. There's a lot to digest, but you do have the 10 days to look through it all and ask any questions.
Yep, perfect. Okay, so property management, you be responsible for the property management fee. The property management fee is 8%, which is a negotiated rate by Minto. If you were to go outside, it'd be more expensive. Yes, analysis for all units will be. The question is, please send the analysis for all units. That'll be sent. Now, I will say these units are moving quickly. So for Gladstone example, there are no Gladstone units available right now, is there? Those are all sold, right? So I know there are some 1-bedrooms potentially left, and then you jump into the 2-bedrooms. There are currently no 1 in dens left available. So don't sit on this opportunity. They are quickly.
I have one George as of right now, and then
Okay.
everything Riley and bigger.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Minto will guarantee tenant from day one. Not a guarantee, but what they'll do is if you sign a contract and you could say your closing date's later in the year, they can start marketing the property for rent right away for you. And once a tenant's in place, they can move for you to take that. So it's not a guarantee of the tenant, but they can help you put a tenant in place before you close.
For day one, yeah.
So I guess to say, you will most likely have a tenant when you close, taking advantage of Minto's program to allow them to market the property with a tenant. Best way to describe it, guys?
Yeah, that's the goal. The goal is to line it all up on day one so that you're cash flow positive from day one.
Exactly. So they're not going to guarantee you in writing, but there's a good chance, as long as you're working with them, that your unit will be rented out. For the 2 beds and 2 baths, is a parking locker included. Those are extra. I think I saw parking is $45,000 plus GST, and a locker was, if available, $7,500 plus GST.
Exactly. And those lockers, we only have a few of them. I think they're available for the Plaza and the Essex units right now.
Yeah, I know there were really, really tight supply.
There's only a few. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you have to convert something in the building just to get those ones. Can I get?
Yeah, we've allocated them. We pre-allocated them to those larger units that are left.
Yeah.
So.
Can I get electrical information? Yes. This whole thing has been recorded, so you'll get a copy of this. Why is this opportunity become available? What has made it coming as big as Minto do such a deal with benefits initially to buy it? Because the building's done. That's what it is. Like, what happened? It's COVID. COVID happened.
I think Dilesh says it really well. Like, we have a lot of things in the pipeline. Yeah. And so we're just trying to refocus and shift, wipe the clean slate and move on.
Yeah, that's 100% it is. It's moving of money around. There's existing product. Just getting rid of the last units, and then they have a whole bunch of other buildings that they're building. So it's a negative thing. It's an opportunity to look at.
Yeah. I saw a question about closings and deposits and things like that. So just so everybody knows, that's kind of my realm. So Dilesh is all the numbers in the market and the real detailed analysis. I am the documentation execution. I'm the person that's going to be emailing you and hounding you. But so basically what'll happen is, if there's a unit that you would like to move on, you speak with Alex, you'll submit the worksheet. It'll come straight to me. You'll have to book a video appointment as well with me. And that's just a quick 10-15 minute phone call so that I can just make sure that you're a real person, and for us to get to know each other and confirm details before I send those docs out to you. Once you get those docs, it'll come through DocuSign, sign them up. You'll get your disclosure documents through there too. Once everything is signed and accepted, you'll have 10 days to review everything. During those 10 days, that's when, it's good to talk to TD and get your finances in order so that you feel comfortable to firm up on the 10 days. And so at the 10-day or the expiry of the 10-day rescission, that's when your $5,000 deposit will be due. And then we'll put closing dates for as late as possible, and then we'll accelerate those based on if a tenant is found or whatever the key scenario might be for yourself.
Great.
If that answers
there'll be an availability list sent out in the summary email that I sent to everyone. Visual of the unit location within the building. Do you have views? Do we have views for the building?
We have a floor plate that'll tell you what side of the building it's on.
Yeah.
And then so just referencing that 9A Street is the east, which is downtown, and then the other side is the west, which is Kensington.
Yeah, which and then I do have a view slide that I could send as well, so I'll send that to you.
Okay, good. Okay.
When will the condos complete? They're not done now?
Yeah, we started moving people in 2 months ago?
Yeah.
End of February. Yeah, we had our first start.
Okay. Yeah.
But to give that answer, you will have flexibility to pick that closing date a little later out if you want to. You don't need to close tomorrow.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I think
you'll have flexibility with that.
I think somebody may say, and we'll just go down the list based on who's firmed up their unit to say, hey, we've got a tenant for a unit. They want to move in 30 days, and you could say, hey, that's way too quick for me to get my ducks in a row. We'll just pass that on to the next person. And then when the next person comes back who's ready for rent, we would come back to you and say, okay, this person's 45 days or 60 days out. It may be as quick as that, especially now's the season where people are moving spring, summer, right? So it's the perfect opportunity to lock in that earlier interest rate. The other thing
I'll
that,
be honest, there's not a lot downtown right now for availability when it comes to like these nicer, newer units. Like there's, don't get me wrong, there's stuff available, but like this is way nicer than what you can find on the market right now, in my opinion. Because I want to come back to the, in case everybody wants to know, I don't live in Calgary. I live in one of the satellite communities called Cochrane, or west of the city. I've got great mountain views, but I want to come back to the city, and so I might actually be looking to rent one of your units. So,
well, yeah, and that's where, like, again, I had an investor like get their pictures of their unit they're closing in June. They bought previously, and they were just blown away by the units. Like these units are top notch.
they're great.
Can we talk? Completed. Can you provide the TD contact details? Yes, that will be included. Is the GST rebatable? Dilesh will jump in. I think the pricing is too high for the GST be rebatable. It's going to be just, it's a sliding scale portion.
Yeah, it's a sliding scale if it's in market for a primary residence. And I think you guys might be able to rebate the GST from being in Ottawa. So I think you would have I think you have different rules over there. We can look into that with our legal team. And
there'll be a portion rebatable, but the level is 450,000. So from what I know, what the products left there is very limited, but it's only the GST portion. So it's not and if you were to fall into the category right away, it's only 33% of the GST. Up to the $450,000 price, and I think after 450, it's some sort of sliding scale, but it's not a large amount.
In market here, it's between 350 and 450. It's $6,300 at 350, and it's $0 at 450 if it's a primary residence, and anything under 350 gets that standard 36% of the GST back. But it has to be a primary residence for that in the Calgary market. So we'll just have to double check on the rules for what will be the case, but we can get back to you on that for sure.
Yeah. To answer the question, just property management company, local property management company, 8% fee. Address those questions. Are business mortgages accepted? Well, you just got to close on the property. Minto, there's a set rate that Minto is going to do. They're calculating their payments are going to be on a 25-year amortization calculated at a 2.1% interest rate. So if you're paying a 10% interest rate, they're only going to give you 2.1. Now I'm just picking a crazy number out there. Or if you have a low interest rate, you're making a bump at the 2.1. So it doesn't matter where the mortgage is from. You just need to make sure that you close on the property. Yes, there'll be a video of this. Okay. Okay. So Vicky, great question. This is existing inventory that's being sold. Closing date sometime this year. You have flexibility, as we said. So there's flexibility on when you close in 2021. Is it a firm final closing? Yes, it's a firm final closing. They don't have occupancy in Alberta. Firm final closing in Alberta. You're not looking at assignments here because you're closing this year. For someone that asked that question. For a buyer in Toronto, do we have to use a lawyer in Calgary? Yes. Law is provincial. So you'll use a Calgary-based lawyer, and we have lawyers that we can recommend. You don't need to fly to Calgary at all. No need to go to Calgary. You can do everything from wherever you're located. There's no need to actually go to Calgary for any of this. Everything can be done virtually. And I think that covers all the questions. And as per typical, my presentations usually go over. So thank you, Dilesh, Ellie, and Allison. Really appreciate you coming online. Oh, Vicky, great question. I do want to address this. Your closing costs are only your legal fees. That's it.
Yeah.
$1,000. No land, no double land transfer tax, no charges, no HST rebate portion that you got to pay in closing like we have in Toronto. Nothing. $2,000 in closing and plus your deposit, whatever.
I don't even know if it's 2,000. Is it, Dilesh? Maybe that's a good blanket.
Yeah, 1,300 to 1,600 is what we've seen.
I was going to say, like, you're usually like a lump. Yeah.
if I'm closing on one of these condos in Toronto, again, forget about the HST rebate portion, pay extra and apply for that. I'm looking at like $40,000 of hard cash that I need for my land transfer tax and development charges, meter charges, all those extra.
No,
Don't have any of that in Alberta. None.
no,
None.
no.
No foreign buyer tax. No rent control. Like that.
They'll ding you for disbursements though. So, you know, currying documents, but.
Oh yeah, like it's like that's where I get so excited about Calgary, because I look at the Toronto market, GTA, I look at Vancouver, I look at, you know, things we didn't include in here. I'm just going to jump on them quickly because you guys got to get excited about this. We look at the growth opportunity in Alberta, population growth, 48% over the next 22 years. That's a stats can. It's only 24% in Ontario. The net swing of individuals between British Columbia and Alberta, British Columbia has 600,000 less people than Alberta by 2043, which is not far away. Alberta will have 400,000 more. It's a favorable investment environment, lowest corporate tax rates in Canada. And it's the fourth largest city for population and economic growth. It has it has a larger economy than Manitoba and Saskatchewan. Investors, like my conversations in 2019 where people, when they were buying in Calgary, looks like a good deal, I'll sign off. Now in 2021, my people are like, I can't find a good investment opportunity in Ontario. Calgary looks good. So now you're getting the hardcore investors starting to look at opportunities in Alberta. And when that happens, you're going to see prices push up. So Calgary is the next frontier for large increases in prices. And by far versus Toronto, Vancouver, or Montreal, or Ottawa, it has the most favorable real estate investment environment in Canada, bar none. So Vicky, thank you for that question because it allowed me to go on my rant on how attractive Alberta is to do that. And I'll end this, Kenny. Yes, there are other projects coming up that are closing in the future, but they won't have the same incentive. There'll be a different incentive in there, if any incentive at all, because builders only offer when they want to move some product. As things heat up, you won't get that anymore. Okay, guys, thank you so much. As I said, this has been recorded and everyone get a recap email on the video, but you're going to want to jump on these right away because I asked Alesh for a unit yesterday. He's like, oh, sorry, it's gone. So I know these things are moving very, very quickly. So you want to get your requests in right away. You will get an email this afternoon from me. Okay, everyone. I'll talk to you. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye, guys.